Hey, everybody. So I know a lot of new tax sale investors really struggle when it comes to knowing how deep they need to research a property. So I'm researching some properties today, and I wanted to just do a screen recording to kind of show you the depth you need to go to really look at these properties instead of just doing the surface level type of research. So what you're looking at here is tax-sale.info. This is run by a company called Title Check, and they handle the majority of the sales in the state of Michigan. So I'm going to show you some of the properties that I have been researching. So when you log on to tax-sale.info, they've got a pretty cool website. They got some properties, they got some photos, they have a lot of information. Now, you can go to view available properties and you can see their past auction results and the upcoming auctions. So in the state of Michigan, they actually have two different auctions. They have a minimum bid auction, which will start at the amount of back due taxes, interest, and fees. And then they have a no reserve auction. They'll start with a nominal bid, $100, $200, somewhere along those lines, and it will go to the highest bidder regardless of the amount of back due taxes, interest, and fees. It's more of a leftover type sell. Now, when you're looking at this website, what we'll do is we'll click on upcoming auctions, and it'll show you just the minimum bid auctions that are available, the no reserve auctions. So what you'll see here is October 31st. You can bid now, and October 31st is when they go and they release all of the winning bids. And of course, you have past auctions from this season. Now, let's click on Genesee County here because I'm going to show you something that might surprise you. And it kind of illustrates more or less how deep you need to research. So I was looking at this property right here. I was actually looking at this when there was a reserve on it. I believe it was around $30,000 or $32,000, somewhere in that ballpark. This is a former mobile home park. We click on it. We have pictures of, the mobile homes that were there at the time that they were taking these photos, that kind of thing, which is pretty cool, right? So it really helps us out, to have these photos. And Title Check does a fantastic job providing photos, providing lots and lots of very useful information. However, you need to make sure you double check their work. The reason, of course, they provide as much information as they can is they are an auction company. They get 10% buyer's premiums on every property that they sell. So they want a lot of interested people. They want a lot of bids. They want the properties to sell for a lot of money. And what happens is as you go through Title Check's website, you will actually come across properties and they have crazy amounts of information. I've seen some of the leftover parcels that we're looking at now. They're pretty basic, but you look at some of these properties, I've seen 60, 70 photos before. This is a very basic. This is one of the properties they did not take that many photos of, just one photo, but even still, that one photo can help you out. I've also seen descriptions where it tells you about the property. It says they were unable to conduct a follow-up inspection on that property, but a lot of times they'll tell you that, it has a lot of junk on the property. They might even give you a measurement. This many yards is estimated of junk to clean out the property. Might tell you if they have, foundation issues, something like that. So what happens is a lot of times people get sucked in to this false sense of security, and they see what, these auction companies are posting online. They see one piece of information online. They say, oh, wow, that's amazing. According to this particular auction company who is handling the auctions, this is a former mobile home park. We have some photos. We can kind of verify that. And they will bid based on what they see right in front of them instead of digging just a little bit deeper. Now, if you know anything about mobile home parks, you should know that getting a property zone for a mobile home park in many areas across the country is very, very difficult. So having that mobile home park zoning and land use attached to it can be extremely valuable. So I looked at this property for that reason. Like I said, I think it was a $30,000 bid last week or 2 weeks ago when I first researched this. I actually researched this for our members in Tax Sale HQ, our community. But I went through this and I was looking at, mobile home park, that's very valuable. Yeah, definitely worth $30,000, right? So you scroll down, just basically says they were not able to conduct a follow-up inspection. Not a big deal. More than happy to do the research myself, right? And they don't have a whole lot of information here. But again, I'm going off the fact that it's a former mobile home park, which means there should be some value there, right? Now, when we pull up the GIS for this property, let's see, we'll click search here. So we'll pull up the GIS for this property, and it, more or less just shows the aerial, kind of what we just saw on the Title Check's website. Now, it does show that there are no mobile homes in this picture, but you can't see the concrete slabs, right? Again, all signs point to this being a former mobile home park. Maybe you go in there, put new mobiles in there. Maybe you build tiny homes on it. Whatever your strategy is, again, the value is in the mobile home zoning. So we click on Show Details. Assessed value, $36,000. State equalized value, $36,000. Owned by somebody out of Carlsbad, California. We click for local assessing information. We tell it that we are a human being and not a robot, and it will pull up more for us. Oh, we got to go through the whole deal with this one, apparently. Okay, click Submit. And now, obviously, what you see here, lot 25, 24, a lot of different lots and stuff. We're just going to click on the one at the very top here. And we'll load this information up. All right, so we can scroll down. Yeah, same people own it at Carlsbad. Not much information really here on their website. We have, let's see, we'll pull up these sketches here. Myrtle Grove Trailer Park. It looks like there's some debris in the background. So that is, it kind of matches up with the trailers being moved. Lots of debris there. That's a little bit concerning. But again, maybe they've since removed that debris. I don't know. Haven't been there. So this is 10.729 acres. So almost 11 acres zone mobile homes, which when we look at the aerial map for this property from Google, I mean, again, this is very nice property. Looks like there's kind of one way in. You get a loop on this one and a couple of straight roads here. Very, very valuable property. We'll click on over here, the street view of this property. Let's see. So yeah, I mean, it looks legit, right? Looks like a former mobile home park that we could possibly turn back into a mobile home park again. Now, that is where a lot of newer investors will stop their research. And that's a problem. Because if you did that, you would have been happy to pay the $30,000 or whatever it sold for, or whatever it was offered for a couple weeks ago. Now, as you can see, it did not get sold in that auction, so it's a minimum bid for $350. And here is the reason why. Remember that photo that we saw? Let's see if we can find it again. Myrtle Grove Trailer Park. If you were to Google that, into Google, nothing fancy, not a paid system or anything like that, Google it, and you can say, our home is gone. Demolition has started. So red flags are starting to pop up, right? We keep Flint Township plans to remove squatters, fire at abandoned trailer parks. Let's click on this one. They talk about removing the squatters. This is, there's that same exact sign we actually just saw. But if you go through this article, it basically tells you how much of a nuisance this mobile home park was. So let's see, continue up to say, okay. So then you scroll down, contract approved for trustees to demolish the building's trailers, leaving only cement pads, $135,000 in demolition costs. And this was paid for by the township, and they got a grant, or they got, it's a general fund. So long story short, $135,000, which might possibly be your responsibility if you were to buy that. Again, if it's zone mobile home park, $135,000 plus the $30,000 bid from a couple of weeks ago, you're at $165,000. Might not be that bad because, when you look at this, aerial, let me see if I can go back and find it. Boom, there it is. So you look at this aerial, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 12, 24, 4. I mean, you're looking at like 60 mobile home sites. Like that's still very, very valuable. At that point, you're basically paying less than $3,000 per mobile home site, which is still not that bad of a deal. However, then the next thing you want to do is Google the address. So when we Google this address, obviously the Google Maps image pops up, talks about Myrtle Grove, and then we scroll down and boom, this is the thing that really stands out. And this is the reason the property did not sell a couple of weeks ago. Board okays the first reading of the zoning amendment for defunct trailer park property. You go through and you read this, and it will show the property went zone RMH, manufacturer mobile home, to R1, single family residential. And what has happened here is in the state of Michigan, the county actually becomes the owner of the property after the tax foreclosure. So the county is the applicant, they're the landowner, they're the ones that now want to get it rezoned. And of course, they're going to push it right through. They're going to rezone it because they don't want another mobile home park going in there since they had such a bad experience with the previous mobile home park. So the owner, the county, they are pushing it through to change the zoning from mobile home park to single family residential. And I don't know the value of what this property would be worth as a 10 acre, was it 11 acres zone, single family residential in the middle of, I think it was Flint Township, Michigan. I don't know what the value of that is. I didn't even bother looking it up. But the point of this quick demonstration is to show you the values of this property suddenly decreased very, very substantially simply because it went from zoning of a mobile home park to single family residential. So that's one of those things where you need to keep digging until you get all of the information, and don't just go off the basics, off former mobile home park. Okay, fantastic. I'm going to turn it into a tiny home community. I'm going to make millions of dollars, because it doesn't work like that. You need to dig deep. Now, at a $350 minimum bid, can you make money on this property if it's zoned single family residential at 10 acres? Yeah, probably so. But remember, you still have $135,000 or so that was due for the demolition costs that might still be attached to that property. And if you keep digging more and more, I think there's somewhere I saw something about asbestos and all sorts of other fun stuff that was involved in Flint Township to pay more for asbestos abatement in this trailer park. There's another $4,000. So you're talking like $170,000 now for 10, 11 acres, zone single family residential. Is it worth it? Again, I don't know. But the point of the video was to show you how that quick change in zoning affects the value. Let me show you another example, completely unrelated properties here. If you go back to the homepage and you're looking at researching, let's say, Mecosta County, and I'm going to do this for a couple of these because a lot of people want to say that they see success in tax sale investing, and they want to, just basically shout across the rooftops like, hey, I finally bought a property. Well, guess what? Buying a property is not success in tax sale investing. It is progress. It is momentum, but you have to buy that property correctly. And I'm going to give you a prime example. And these are properties that Canadian Lakes. These are properties that I think it's in northern Michigan, somewhere just above Grand Rapids, actually, I guess central Michigan that would be. So Canadian Lakes is a subdivision. They have thousands and thousands of lots, and I see these pop up at tax sales every single year. And here's the reason why. So these actually don't even have photos on it, but we're going to click on, click on this half acre one right here. Minimum bid is $100. Current taxes, which you have to pay in the state of Michigan when you buy a property at a tax sale, $1,888. So you got $100 plus your $1,888, so $120 in this, plus your fees and buyer's premiums, all that stuff. Just call it $150 by the time you do the deed fee and all that good stuff. $150 for a lot. That's really, really cheap, right? And a lot of people say, hey, I got a lot for $150. That's fantastic, right? Well, the deal is, can you sell it? Or did you just buy yourself a problem? Now, I don't recall the exact number, but I believe the association dues in Canadian Lakes are around $700, $800 per year. And the cool thing here is if you happen to live in the area, you do have access to a lot of really cool stuff. You have, it says 8-court pickleball arena area. It says tennis, volleyball, basketball, soccer, disc golf. Membership includes outdoor pool, indoor swimming pool, fitness area, hot tub, sauna, 6 beaches, winter sport. There's a lot of really cool stuff here, right? If you lived in the area, that would make a lot of sense. Maybe you buy a lot there, get to use the amenities, that kind of stuff for $800 or whatever it is a year, plus your taxes of $20 a year. That's not a bad situation if you use those amenities. And that's how you see a lot of times with subdivisions this large. However, if you're trying to sell this property, you have $800 a year dues. And let's look and let me show you some of the values in here. You're talking at $2,000 Now, if you scroll down, I mean, obviously there's some properties that are selling for $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. And this is very surface level research. And I'm more or less going through that really quick to show you how I would approach it. But as a tax sale property, as somebody that did not pay the property taxes on this, which was $18, multiply that by, I don't know, 5 or 10 or whatever, you're talking like they've got less than a couple $100 in taxes that they lost this property over. So to the owner of the property, it wasn't worth a few $100 to keep. And again, it's $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. Now, again, you scroll down, there might be some properties worth $10,000, $12,000. But being that this is a tax sale property, you probably need to right off the bat just assume it is one of the lower valued properties in this subdivision. Otherwise, they would have kept paying the taxes of $20 a year on it. So you have a lot that's worth $2,000. This is actually larger than ours. Say here's a lot's worth, say it's worth $2,500, right? And say you're able to get it for $500. So you have a lot that's worth $2,500. You paid $500. That's a $2,000 return. Now, don't forget those HOA or those property owner associations dues that are attached to this that run you about $800 a year. Don't forget that you might need to clear the title. This one right here, it's going through a real estate company. That means it probably has a clear title. To clear the title, you might be looking at $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and then suddenly your margin is gone. And that's excluding any length of ownership that you own it, maybe a year, 2 years by the time you sell it. So you're looking at a negative return on this property. So just because you can buy this property for $100 or $500 or whatever it is, that does not necessarily make it a win. Let me show you one other example too, because these properties come up quite a bit. This is Gladwin County, very, very similar situation. We scroll down, Sugar Springs property owner resort. And a lot of these properties actually have already sold. They sold, people bought them at the minimum bid amount. But we look at these and, this one's state equalized value is $3,500. Current tax is $104. So you're in this thing for $204 at the opening bid. Again, if you live there, if you use these amenities, not bad, but it's an all-season recreational community. They talk about 18-hole golf courses, designed by Jerry Matthews. I don't know exactly who that is, but apparently it's pretty good. You got a restaurant, indoor swimming pool, tennis courts, basketball courts. Then they have their own little grass airstrip, right? 35 site public campground. There's a lot of really cool stuff here if you use it. Well, they also have a lake assessment and all sorts of other assessments. So I believe the assessment here was like $500 a year, somewhere in that ballpark, plus a lake assessment, which I think was $100 last time I checked. So you're in for this lot like $600 a year, plus your taxes, which are $104, so $700 a year. So you buy it, and how much is it worth? It's worth about $3,000. Again, $3,000, and you're in this thing for $600 a year. Can you make money at the opening bid if you sell it with an as-is title? Yes, these are strategies that I teach. You can make money. I've made a lot of money buying in POA and HOA subdivisions, lots like this, selling it with an as-is title. But guess what? You're not going to get the $3,000 because that's through a real estate company who is going to sell it with a clear title and title insurance for maximum. Full market value on this sucker is only $3,000. So if you're to do that, again, you get all these fees, you get $800, $900, you clear the title, you're in this thing for like $2,000, $2,500 on the low end. Plus you got to pay your realtor. Plus you've got to pay title insurance, pay title fees when you go to sell it for your buyer. So guess what? Again, your margin is right out the window. So your only real option with a property like this, outside of maybe you do live by and you want to use these amenities, which would be awesome, but your only real option is to buy this property, sell it as is very, very quickly. Hopefully you have a buyer's list set up that you can do something like that. Because at the end of the day, buying this property at a tax sale auction, regardless of the price, $100, by the time you get those POA dues and everything else worked into this transaction, it's going to be a loser. Even though you bought it cheap, even though you bought that $100 lot, it's still a loser unless you have very specific objectives and very specific ways to sell like an as-is title to a buyer's list. So that is all I got for you today. Hopefully this helped out. Hopefully this dove a little bit deeper, especially for some of the newer investors out there that don't exactly know how deep they should dive. You want to trust this information that you see on these websites, whether it's in an HOA or a POA, or maybe it's the mobile home part that we talked about earlier. You want to trust that information, but the problem is that information can be very, very misleading. This $100 bid, that looks very enticing until you start digging into it and realizing there's no margin there if you're trying to sell it on the open market. This is stuff that we talk about inside our community, Tax Sale HQ, which you can check out. There's a link. It's the first link in the description. We have lots of very supportive investors that are helping each other out, helping each other grow as tax sale investors. I'm in there every single day answering everybody's questions. And of course, we do live trainings there every single week. But this is the type of stuff that we talk about to help you get a leg up when it comes to leveraging the knowledge that you have about tax sale investing and it progressing your career, and obviously making more money as a tax sale investor. Hope this helps, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.